Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Charlebois, in December 2021, the Canadian Energy Regulator laid out its scenario for Canada's future oil production that predicted a major increase up into the 2030s, then it would flatline, and then in 2050, it would be roughly similar to what it is today, slightly lower, but pretty close. Is that the CER's projection today?
So what you describe is, yes, our projection from our 2021 Energy Futures Report, which was under the evolving policy scenario, which means that we have projected what would be the production of oil and gas in a context where Canada's climate policies were to become increasingly stringent as they have been so far.
Okay.
So if I may, just one point of clarification, this is not a scenario where Canada meets net zero emission by 2050. That specific scenario is something we are currently working on, will be available in the spring.
Okay, that's interesting because Mr. Guilbeault said that with his green plan, they were using the Canadian Energy Regulator modeling, and I find it dramatically at odds with what the International Energy Agency is saying, that they say the only way we're going to keep to 1.5 degrees, the red line from catastrophe, is to decrease from 100 million barrels a day to 24 million barrels a day in 2050. And yet what we see is that Canada carries on as business as usual. So I find that concerning. And one of the ways that we get to this major increase that you predicted, the extra million barrels a day coming up into 2030s, of course, is the TMX pipeline. So I'd like to turn my comments to that. The tolls for the shipping of the TMX pipeline was originally assessed when this value of the pipeline was $1 billion. Kinder Morgan walked when the costs were $5.4 billion because they couldn't pass those tolls on to the companies who were shipping. Will you confirm that the CER has limited the cost overruns to $7.4 billion of the cost of the pipeline, that would be transferred to shippers, but any overrun costs are not going to be transferred to the shippers?
I cannot confirm this. What I can confirm, though, is that the methodology that will be used to calculate the final tolls on the pipeline has been approved in 2013. That methodology includes certain cost categories that are capped and some that are not capped, meaning that to the extent that there are cost increases above and beyond the cap for certain categories, then those cost increases are for the account of the pipeline rather than being able to pass those cost increases to shippers.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm running out of time here, but so these costs were figured in 2013. In 2022, this project is now $21 billion. Massive overruns, at least $17 billion. So would you confirm that what the shippers are being told they will pay is 22% of the actual cost overruns based on $7.4 billion budget? All the rest of that, at least the 78% of the shipping costs, is right now going to be subsidized by the Canadian taxpayer. Would you confirm that?
I cannot confirm this because that particular analysis, with all of the actual number and mechanics to do it, will be the subject of an application that is yet before the Commission. What the numbers that you are citing, I know they have been floating in the media, some have been available elsewhere, but in terms of the actual regulatory review of final tolls for the expansion, this is a file that is not before the regulator, so I cannot speak to the
okay. I guess the question is, because you spoke very clearly about your mandate being cost recovery, it would be an extraordinary free ride for very profitable companies if the Canadian taxpayer is covering 75-78% per barrel of every barrel that's shipped. That would be an extraordinary subsidy. So at what point will the public be informed whether or not we are paying the cost of every barrel that's shipped on top of the $21 billion we're carrying for the price of this pipeline? Will the CER come back and say to the public, we think it's in the public interest to transfer all the cost to the shipper? I mean, that's how the free market's supposed to work. Or is it possible that we are going to be stuck with those costs?
The regulatory proceeding that will be undertaken to evaluate the appropriateness of the tolls of the expanded system will be public for all Canadians to see. There are sometimes instances where some segments are confidential, but that it remains to be determined. But okay, by its very nature, the proceedings are fully transparent and public.
Thank you. Have you read the Parliamentary Budget Officer report that says the TMX pipeline has a net negative value of $600 million? Have you read his report? Do you concur with it? Do you think he got his facts wrong?
I have read the report. It's not for me to judge whether the report is accurate or not. There are certain assumptions that are disclosed in the report. Other assumptions and mechanics, such as the cash flow analysis, is not public, so I cannot opine on whether it's accurate or not.
Okay, thank you very much. Would you be able to share with our committee any of the toll agreements that have been worked out going back to 2013?
Absolutely. This is what I will share. Yeah, I agree to do that with Mr. Simon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're out of